Hey guys, and welcome back to another Parliament Games video. Today, we're going to be going over kind of I don't know how to say this, a deck that you probably may have never actually seen. As always, my name is Adam, and this is Parliament Games. Today, we're going to review Metagross in the 2010 format, right? Who said this is an okay idea? I don't know. I found this deck once on Snowpoint Mart. I said, why not? I'll buy it. And honestly, it's probably been one of the most fun decks I've played in this format. In regards to, I also love this as a Pokemon, but just something unique. I played way back when. I know if you guys have kept up so far and what I've talked about, I don't remember this deck. Now, if anybody here who watches this has seen this deck played in person, please let me know. I'd love to hear about it. Anyway, we'll just jump into it. There's two parts to this, both Metagross, which requires a lot of setup, but sometimes you gotta love your stage twos, right? The premier ability of this deck is the Magnetic Reversal. Basically, just as Pokemon Circulator, or not Pokemon Circulator, Pokemon Catcher, or at least the modified one. Flip a coin. If heads, switch one of your opponent's bench Pokemon with the defending Pokemon, and then it can't be used if affected by a special condition. All right, so now let's get down to it. This ability is just not the highlight. While it's incredible because you can have up to 3 of these Metagross out in this list, which, 3 times in a turn, you're hopefully going to get a coin. What is it? 50 and then 25 and then, 12.5. So it gets better the stronger and the more stacked you are, but still, coins. If you like your Cramomatics or anything in standard or you name it, this is the deck for you in retro style. We're going to move on to the next one, and the Metagross 2. And I'll go back to the first one here after we read this Pokebody because it's kind of important on how these two synergize. Each Pokemon in play, everyone, gets minus 20 HP. Now, you can only have one of these, and there's only one on the list, thankfully. This attack is not that good, unfortunately. Actually, I don't even know what it does. If you have a Stadium card in play, this attack does 20 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon that is the same type as the defending Pokemon. I take that back. This attack's actually really good. I should have used this. The highlight that comes between these two, at least what I've seen in the games that I've gotten to play with it, is that this first attack. And now, in the game, Metagross was always was it Comet Punch? Was it, he's got his special attack. Anyway, I think it's in the long lines of this context here. Extra Comet Punch. During your opponent's next turn, Metagross's Extra Comet Punch attacks base damage is 100. Now, 50 in this format wasn't too shabby. 100 was actually really good. It was able to one-shot, or at least get incredibly close to one-shotting almost all of the level X's. Obviously not the bigger ones like your Torterras or, even in most cases. Unfortunately, Luxray had a resistance to this guy, so it made it just that little much harder. But getting up to 100 damage is huge. Now, why this is kind of important, at least in my opinion, with the testing that I've done, is that Extra Comet Punch hitting once for 50 and then once follow up for 100 is a good way to two-shot something in the format, which, 150 damage can't get past. He's a relatively bulky Pokemon. You add in the special metal energy we recovered or have covered already back in our Dialga video, which maybe we can find a way to post up in here. But always a handy tool card for something to make your Pokemon beefier, especially in the metal decks. Now, this also is paired with a few trainer cards you can see here. We got the Plus Power and the Expert Belt in heavy amounts that help make this Metagross basically able to start to do the one-shot capabilities you'd hope for. The problem with this energy cost is that it basically cannot happen in one turn. Unless you hit the double colorless, then you're off to a turn 2 race. But if you don't, you are manually attaching 3 turns in a row. There is no energy acceleration in this deck, but that does not make it less fun to play. Now, as I was saying earlier, I think the combo that comes out primarily between these two is that you're looking to Magnetic Reversal their Uxies, their Azelfs, and on the turn that you need to do the 50 damage with your extra Comet Punch, You hit one of them for 50. All right. Now hear me out on this. I know this is going to sound crazy, but you hit it for 50, and worst case scenario, this Metagross gets knocked out right there. You know, you've been dealt the hand you have, and it was a Blaziken level X, and they Blaze kicked you, and that was it. So you have to play this game out still, because obviously, you know, it's a best of one format. This is retro. It's old. Later in the match, that what you can do is if you drop this Metagross, everything on the field gets reduced HP down by 20, like I said, which will instantly knock out any Azelf or Uxie or Spiritomb, in this case, Chatot. And if you had managed to accelerate any amount of damage and did it to a Claydol earlier, that would knock that out as well. I mean, anything. Almost most basics, getting down from 70 down to 50, it's huge. Setting this up, not as easy as it thinks, because like I said earlier, it is a coin flip based thing. We'll go over some of the other stuff in this deck. This Metang was probably the best one that you could find. If it has any metal retreat cost to it, or any metal energy attached to it, the retreat cost for Metang is 0. Always useful. Creating a free retreater in this deck is helpful, because obviously you have some big boys in here. We have a 3-1 different Beldum split. I'll go over, this is the unique one, the one of. If you start this guy, he's very useful. You always want to attach a metal energy to him to put another Beldum onto your bench. I like this 3-1 split just because it gives you something to search for in 2 different scenarios. This Beldum has a hefty 2 retreat cost for a 50 HP guy, which is kinda but they both have the same HP, and this Beldum can actually use a lure. You know, it's just your draw card, collect, basically, in modern terms, usually. Claydol, with the typical Cosmic Power, one of the best cards printed ever of all time, along with Uxie and Uxie level X, as I've mentioned before. It's insane. I don't know how else to put it. There's a reason it was in the Celebrations set, that this card was basically, if we could go back to in any healthy way, I would love to see it. Spiritomb. Now, this is an evolving deck, just as I know we haven't covered. Well, I guess we did cover in Galley Gardevoir. You do want to just assemble your stage 2s. The trainer supporter line in this deck is pretty good. I like the ability to actually search for your basics, search for your evolutions. So it makes your Spiritomb almost always useful. Plus, it's free. You can't beat it. It was just a staple for a reason. Chatot. This was your free retreater that you could start with, and that Mimic was always useful. This allowed you to turn 1, search for a Roseanne's, to grab an unknown Q to get something with a 1 retreat cost if you had a bad start out of the active, to throw Chatot into the active, or, in this case, Spiritomb. Both fantastic starters that can attack for free. You have Uxie, Azelf, and Unknown Q, almost one of staples in most of every deck in this format. Yeah, give or take this guy. A hefty cost, or a hefty count of Roseanne's Research and Baby's Search, like I said, to help you with that supporter shuffling. We have a 3 count of Judge. Now, in the last video in Galley Gardevoir, I covered why Judge is an important card. It basically helps stop your opponent from consecutively using a Cyrus Chain. Now, this is huge. In this deck specifically, I'm not going to say it's my favorite. In fact, I would actually go as far as to say that I would like to change this list in the future. But it being something that I don't always get to put the time in with, or just a deck that has its kind of ceiling that you can kind of compare to others, it does the job. Plus Claydol, honestly, you know, you judge them, you Claydol, you build yourself back up, and hopefully they hit a stuck hand like a current standard path. Like I said earlier, you have your plus powers and your expert belt. Huge, just insane stuff here. You can get your extra Comet Punch for hitting up to 120 if you add in the expert belt, plus any plus power modifiers. So that would be up to 160 if you were managing to somehow get everything out at once. This Metagross becomes a pretty effective tank with a expert belt on him, putting him up to 140 HP. Then you can count in any special metal, like I had said earlier, just creating just kind of a, you know, if you have, let's say, 3 of these for your opponent to go through, that's going to be a long game. And especially if you're able to land these magnetic reversals on key targets so your opponent can never actually stay away from the fight, then Metagross does have a place, I think, in being a really good card. Other things in the deck, Pokemon communication, just like I said earlier with the Beybes, you got to look for other things. This helps you sequence into a rare candy, just as Beybes would, but sometimes you never know. You just may need to do it a few times a turn. Switch, like I said, you got some hefty boys in this deck. Copy of 2. I think in the future, if I were to change anything, I think the switch count's fine, and I like the Unknown Q. I think the Chatot might go. I would actually like to do maybe something like a 4 count of Spiritomb Starter and just lean into the slow and delay that your opponent can't stop you from magnetic reversaling and then leaving it into the active. But that's just future stuff. Luxury Ball, just a 1-of count and everything, and almost Night Maintenance are almost the same as their count of Night Maintenance in this format. Fantastic card, even sometimes up to 2. 4 basic metal, 4 special metal because it's a metal deck, so why not? And 4 double colorless, just kind of rounding out our 60. Now, like I said earlier, this list is something that I don't know if honestly it was competitive. I had never heard of it back then, and to this day, I've never really seen a list anywhere else. So like I said, if you find it and let me know. I think I do want to change this. I want to add some special stuff like this Beldum from, let's see, I think it was this guy. This Beldum, add in the Moonlight Stadium, heavier Spiritomb count, and then mix up the supporter line a little bit to make it more, like I said earlier, just a special trainer lock stall deck that creates a higher optimal strategy for you to building up a more Metagross under trainer lock. So they can't really do as much, but who knows? Anyways, guys, thank you for checking out the video. If you've made it this far, like last time, I said let's do Unknown P. This time, let's do putting the metal in Metagross. Right? All right. Okay. Anyways, guys, have a good one. Always buying collections. If you ever have any inquiries about cards you're looking for, hit us up on all of our social media, here in the comments. You name it. All right. Peace and love. See ya.